Now it's time for America's Talking, with headlines from across the country you can find in your inbox with the Center Square newsletter, free at thecentersquare.com, and also linked below in the description of this video. The Washington Attorney General and Democratic leaders plotted how to overturn a nearly century-old decision that banned income taxes in the state, writing that they want to force the state Supreme Court to reconsider its 1933 decision. That's according to nearly 1,000 pages of public records exclusively obtained by the Center Square. The bill, the governor, a Democrat, signed into law March 30th, imposed a 9.9% income tax on residents earning more than $1 million, but a lawsuit's been filed to block its implementation. The Center Square obtained 988 pages of records that included communications between Washington State Attorney General's office leadership and staff and state legislators regarding efforts to overturn the 1933 state Supreme Court decision declaring individuals' income to be their property. Here's the Center Square investigative reporter, TJ Martinell.
So ever since then, the state Supreme Court has unanimously and consistently ruled that income is property under our 14th Amendment in the state constitution. What they're saying in these emails, both members of the Attorney General's office and state lawmakers, is this bill is being crafted in a way so that it will force the state Supreme Court to address the Colton decision and determine once again, after so many Supreme Court rulings, after so many voters rejecting an income tax, whether or not income is property. And so what it means is that this bill is not intended, this millionaire's tax is not intended to generate revenue for whatever programs they're doing. Its purpose, its true purpose, its primary purpose is to overturn almost a century's worth of legal precedent in which the Supreme Court at one point said it is no longer a question to this court whether income is property.
Now, in that 1933 ruling, if it's overturned, a simple majority vote in the Washington state legislature would allow lawmakers to enact a progressive income tax imposed on every Washington taxpayer. Be sure to follow the developing story with Washington in focus every day here with the Center Square. Voters in Virginia choosing yes or no on a constitutional amendment that could sway 4 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives come November. New congressional redistricting maps were ignited by second-term Republican Donald Trump's pressure on Texas in 2025. The Center Square managing editor Alan Wooten reports thus far, redraws have given hope for Republicans to gain 3 seats. Virginia could change that to a 1-seat deficit. The state has 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans in the U.S. House, and if the amendment passes, it would be forecast to reach a 10-1 edge. In the state the presidential election in 2024, Democrat Kamala Harris edged out Donald Trump 51.8 to 46.1. More than 1 million voters have voted early in Virginia, and polls are open today until 7 p.m. And in the wake of new laws protecting sex workers in California, one Golden State lawmaker wants to give law enforcement agencies the tools they need to understand and combat prostitution and human trafficking. The Center Square's California reporter Madeline Shannon reports Senate Bill 1027, authored by Republican State Senator Tony Strickland, would establish a task force with the primary aims of collecting data related to prostitution, sex work, and human trafficking. It would also make recommendations for law enforcement throughout the state to adequately respond to prostitution.
We now introduce a bill that we're more educated on how we can close any loopholes that we have in our law to make sure it's a strong law to, make sure public safety, that we don't have this disruption of prostitution throughout the state of California. And it's spiraling out of control right now in the state of California. So we want the hard data, we want the experts with the input, and so we have hard data, expertise, advice on what we need to do to move forward to curb this problem that we have.
Now, according to numbers from the Public Policy Institute of California, 12,000 people were trafficked nationwide in 2015, going up to 22,200 in 2019. That fell slightly in 2021 to 16,700. 18% of human trafficking cases occurred in California, which fell to 13% of cases in 2021. Other law enforcement organizations in California are concerned about the connection between prostitution and human trafficking, which the bill also aims to combat. Barnes said changes to state law in recent years made enforcing public safety and identifying victims much more challenging. And that's just some of what America is talking about. Get these and other headlines at thecentersquare.com.